The rhythmic click-clack of high heels echoed through the spacious lobby. The receptionist looked up at the sound, her professional smile faltering for just a second. She quickly wrapped up her current task and switched into full-on alert mode. Sunglasses, red lips, killer heels. Everything about her screamed trouble. "Hello, is there anything I can help you with?" the receptionist asked politely. Tan Mingzhu placed her left hand on the counter and leaned against it, deliberately lowering her voice. "I'm here to see your president, Mr. Liu." Handling the boss's romantic affairs was always the hardest part of the job. The receptionist tried to keep smiling. "Do you have an appointment?" "I was just passing by and thought I'd stop in. Maybe ask your president out for dinner." "I'm sorry, I'll need to call his office before I can let you through. May I ask who you are?" The receptionist picked up the phone, glancing at Tan Mingzhu's expression, trying to gauge her relationship with the boss. "I didn't call him ahead of time, because I wanted to surprise him. Can't you just bend the rules a little?" "Sorry, it's company policy. I can't let you in without verifying your identity first. You should give the president a call." Tan Mingzhu tapped her fingers on the counter and leaned closer. "Do you know your president has a fiancée? He's never mentioned it at the office." "Oh." Tan Mingzhu let out a soft sound and removed her sunglasses, revealing a pair of stunning eyes. For the first time, she smiled. "This is what your president's fiancée looks like. Remember it." The receptionist inwardly groaned. This woman was more troublesome than the other dolled-up ladies that usually came in, breaking all the rules of engagement. Just because the president hadn't mentioned a fiancé didn't mean he didn't have one. But it also didn't mean that this woman in front of her was his fiancée. "I'm sorry, I can't let you in until we verify your identity." The receptionist was a little shaky as she said this. Usually, by this point, these admirers would have lost their temper. Though Tan Mingzhu was still calm, no one could be sure when she might explode. Just as Tan Mingzhu was about to think of a way to prove her identity, a familiar and somewhat teasing voice came from beside her. "She is indeed the president's fiancée." Tan Mingzhu was Liu Shaoqi's fiancée, promised to him through an arranged marriage. An almost invisible fiancée. More precisely, it was their engagement that was invisible. It was a verbal agreement made by both families before they were even born, with no formal marriage contract. Tan Mingzhu's mother and Liu Shaoqi's mother had been close friends since childhood, and her father and his had worked together. But with Tan's family in the south and Liu's family in the north, Tan Mingzhu had only met Liu Shaoqi a few times before going to university. Back then, Tan Mingzhu was full of passion and wanted to attend a military academy to serve her country, just like her uncle. But her family opposed the idea, using the excuse of bonding with her fiancé to send her to Beijing to attend the same university as Liu Shaoqi. Even her uncle, whom she thought would understand, said, "Only those who have experienced it know how tough a soldier's life is. One soldier in the family is enough." At the time, Tan Mingzhu thought her family had no sense of responsibility. "Who even does arranged marriages anymore?" she complained. Naturally, she blamed Liu Shaoqi for this outdated custom. Whenever someone swooned over Liu Shaoqi, she would scoff, "He's got no manliness at all." To her, a real man should be like her uncle. Even her father often laughed helplessly, feeling a bit rejected by his daughter. Tan Mingzhu was determined not to get close to Liu Shaoqi, but both families kept trying to push them together. For example, Tan's mother would always send things to her, but there was always a gift for Liu Shaoqi too. When Tan Mingzhu protested, "Can't you just send it directly to him or to his house?" her mother replied, "Fine, I'll send it all to Shaoqi. He can give it to you." No matter how much she protested, it didn't work. Liu Shaoqi's mother did the same thing, constantly inviting them both over for dinner. At first, Tan Mingzhu kept everything low-key and under wraps, so no one knew about their engagement. In her sophomore year, Tan Mingzhu was lounging on her bed after a shower, enjoying a face mask, when she heard excited screams outside. Her bed was near the window, so when she leaned out to see, she noticed the lights in the boys' dorm across the way had been arranged into the shape of a heart. She didn't find it romantic, just thought the guy must be good at organizing. Suddenly, there was a burst of static from a megaphone, followed by someone shouting, "Tan Mingzhu, I'm Zuyu. I like you. Will you be my girlfriend?" Tan Mingzhu was shocked to realize she was the leading lady in this spectacle, so much so that her face mask nearly fell off. Her roommates nudged her downstairs. At the dorm entrance, candles were arranged in the shape of a heart, and Zuyu stood in the middle with a bouquet of red roses, surrounded by a cheering crowd of boys. When Zuyu had arrived at school in his Porsche, he'd quickly made a name for himself as a rich second generation. Normally, people would be envious of the wealthy, but Zuyu was generous and got along with everyone. It wasn't surprising he'd pull off such an elaborate confession. An arranged marriage wasn't much of an obstacle. Tan Mingzhu had considered dating someone else, but among the available options, none of them could compare to Lu Shaoqi, and definitely not to her uncle. It wasn't her first time being confessed to, but it was hard to reject someone in front of so many people. Zuyu wasn't the type to give up easily either, so she wouldn't have peace in the future if she turned him down. For the first time, Tan Mingzhu found herself eagerly hoping Lu Shaoqi would show up. Even if it seemed like he was just passing by, his indifferent attitude only strengthened her resolve. Amidst the crowd's cheers, Tan Mingzhu grabbed Lu Shaoqi's arm and said in a pitiful voice, "Shaoqi, don't be mad. I don't like him. I only like you." She was secretly thrilled when she saw Lu Shaoqi's usually stoic expression break for a second, but she whispered in a warning tone, "Don't even think about denying it, or I'll tell Auntie you bullied me." Zuyu had already heard that Tan Mingzhu didn't like Lu Shaoqi. He wasn't the only one. Several people around them wore expressions of disbelief, as if they'd just been struck by lightning. Tan Mingzhu smiled sweetly at Zuyu, still holding onto Lu Shaoqi's arm. "Sorry for keeping it a secret from everyone. Lu Shaoqi is my fiancé, so I'm really sorry." Lu Shaoqi played along, gently ruffling her hair, tacitly admitting to his role as her fiancé. The two of them had an unspoken agreement to act as each other's shields. After that, they no longer needed to sneak around, but their relationship didn't progress at all. In novels and TV dramas, the fiancée is always the supporting character. She's disliked by the male lead, but she's madly in love with him. Eventually, when he finds his true love, she becomes the villain and gets discarded. After their engagement became public, Tan Mingzhu couldn't help but imagine how Lu Shaoqi would one day meet a girl he loved and break off their engagement for her, or how that girl might come to her, begging for her blessing because they were truly in love. It was all just her idle fantasies. Life wasn't a plotline that followed her imagination. By the time she turned 27, she still hadn't seen Lu Shaoqi's leading lady. There wasn't even a hint of a love interest. Tan Mingzhu could never explain why she stayed in Beijing after graduating, nor why she hadn't found a boyfriend. Yet, many people were convinced it was because of Lu Shaoqi. 2 months ago, her uncle lost a leg during a mission, and Tan Mingzhu finally understood her family's intentions. As the only girl within 3 generations, they truly couldn't bear to see her endure hardships. Tan Mingzhu took time off to visit her uncle at home. At the awkward age of 27, everyone advised her to hold on to Lu Shaoqi. Her uncle gave the most thought-provoking advice. There are many types of heroes. Take Shaoqi, for example. In just 5 years, he doubled the size of the Lu Corporation and secured a significant overseas market share. You studied economics, so you should understand the impact this has on the country's GDP growth and employment rates. That's what he said, but Lu Shaoqi didn't like her, and she wasn't madly in love with her fiancé like in the novels or TV dramas. Tan's mother gave her a light flick on the forehead. If Shaoqi didn't like you, would he have gone so many years without finding another girlfriend? And you, always going against me. That's why you don't appreciate Shaoqi. I can see it now. One of you is cold and never says a word, and the other is rebellious and slow. You'll both regret it one day. Tan Mingzhu doubted it, but, for once, she tried thinking without prejudice. She realized that Lu Shaoqi was indeed a rare catch. Why wait for some true love heroine to swoop in? She could step up and become Mrs. Lu herself. Once she figured this out, she immediately changed her train ticket and returned to Beijing early. To be honest, the idea of surprising him was just an excuse. The real reason was that too many women coveted Lu Shaoqi, and she wanted to stake her claim. In the end, she had no choice but to call Lu Shaoqi. Unexpectedly, It was Zhuayu who answered. The memory of the once carefree, roguish boy now stood before her, in a sharp suit, having long since taken over his own family's business, like Lu Shaoqi. With Zhuayu's guarantee, Tan Mingzhu easily made her way upstairs. I thought you two would get married shortly after graduation. But after graduation, nothing happened, and now, after all this time, you're still just his fiancée. What's the deal? Is Lu Shaoqi unwilling to marry you? Tan Mingzhu stomped her foot. He wants to marry me, but I don't want to marry him. Both of them were seasoned in the business world, so Lu Shaoqi only showed a brief moment of surprise when he saw Tan Mingzhu. The two men were discussing business at the desk. Tan Mingzhu served tea and casually lounged on the sofa, playing a game on her phone. All right, I won't be the third wheel anymore. We'll grab lunch once the contract is officially signed. Just as Tan Mingzhu was about to praise Zhuayu for his tact, she heard him tease. Mingzhu, you know, if you had chosen me back then, you'd already be the CEO's wife by now. She glanced at Lu Shaoqi and suddenly felt a little guilty. How many ex-girlfriends have you had? Zhuayu scratched his nose but said nothing. He couldn't exactly tell her, in front of her fiancé, that she was his first love and the girl he once liked the most. After she rejected him, he began to doubt his own charm, which led to a bit of a wild streak for a while. Lu Shaoqi sat down next to Tan Mingzhu, his voice carrying a hint of chill. Aren't you leaving? Zhuayu shrieked a few times before sensibly making his exit. With their eyes locked, the atmosphere turned awkward for a moment. Lu Shaoqi cleared his throat lightly. Did you need something? Tan Mingzhu raised an eyebrow. Can't I just look for you, for no reason? Lu Shaoqi's gaze flickered over her as he responded coolly. If you didn't need anything, you wouldn't come looking for me. Tan Mingzhu was at a loss for words. What he said seemed to be true, and she had no way to refute it. She had to change the subject. Do you have time this weekend? I went to Tianjin twice during college, but I never got to ride the Tianjin Eye. The first time the line was too long, and the second time it was closed for maintenance. Will you come with me this weekend? We can make it a day trip. Lu Shaoqi seemed surprised. He turned and stared at her intently for a moment. Tan Mingzhu was also surprised by how calmly she could talk to him. And so, it was settled. It was only later that Tan Mingzhu realized that in the memories she'd neglected, she hadn't treated Lu Shaoqi well. But Lu Shaoqi had always been patient and accommodating toward her. If it wasn't as her mother had said, that Lu Shaoqi liked her, she couldn't think of any other reason. The Tianjin Eye is best experienced at night. In the morning, they biked around the 5 avenues, where the European-style architecture added a romantic touch. Tan Mingzhu turned to look at Lu Shaoqi. He was wearing a white t-shirt, light gray pants, and a white baseball cap, looking just like the boy who used to wait for her under the locust tree near school. They had lunch at a bustling snack street, the lively crowd and the vendor shouts full of the flavor of everyday life. Tan Mingzhu munched on grilled duck intestines while eyeing the grilled squid in Lu Shaoqi's hand with squinting delight. In the afternoon, they wandered around the Italian-style street, took photos at Marco Polo Square, listened to Italian songs outside a restaurant, and browsed small trinkets from street stalls. They unintentionally wandered into a museum, where a free guide explained the artifacts on the first floor. But after seeing the merchandise-filled second floor, they exchanged amused glances, both exclaiming that it was all a sales gimmick. Tan Mingzhu hadn't been this happy in a long time, and it was the first time she saw a childlike side of Lu Shaoqi. So this is what it feels like to be in love. In the past, her logic was that Lu Shaoqi didn't compare to her uncle, and no one else compared to Lu Shaoqi. In this realization, Lu Shaoqi already held an important place in her heart. If this had been before, Tan Mingzhu would never have admitted that perhaps she had liked Lu Shaoqi all along. No one is obligated to wait for you forever, but thankfully, Lu Shaoqi was still there. She still had the chance to make amends and hold on to him. As the city was enveloped by night and the lights came on, Tan Mingzhu and Lu Shaoqi boarded the Tianjin Eye. Lu Shaoqi, actually, the reason I sought you out that day was to ask, when can I officially rise to the position of Mrs. Lu, the president's wife of the Lu Corporation? Lu Shaoqi was instantly stunned, his gaze like an X-ray scanning her face, trying to determine if she was joking. She seemed different since that day, but he liked this change. Whenever you want, you can. Lu Shaoqi liked Tan Mingzhu, but she was the only one unaware of it. Ever since he was young, Tan's mother had told him, "The Mingzhu of the Tan family is your little wife." Before Lu Shaoqi even understood what a little wife was or that Mingzhu could be someone's name, he had already been brainwashed into believing that one day he would possess a beautiful pearl, or Mingzhu. But when he finally met Tan Mingzhu, he realized that she was the cherished little princess of the Tan family, yet she was not his Mingzhu. It was disappointing to discover that Tan Mingzhu disliked him. Tan Mingzhu liked manly men, like her uncle. So Lu Shaoqi asked his father if he could join the military one day. The Lu family had only one heir. The idea of him joining the military scared Lu's father, as there would be no one left to inherit the family business. Lu's mother, however, found a way to placate him. Mingzhu just likes the type who can protect others. It's not about being a soldier. How about signing up for martial arts classes? You can still protect Mingzhu that way. Though not fully understanding, Lu Shaoqi took Taekwondo very seriously. Before choosing his university, Lu Shaoqi called Tan's mother to ask which school Mingzhu was planning to attend. When he learned that Mingzhu wanted to enroll at the National University of Defense Technology, he panicked like never before. There would be plenty of boys there who fit the type that Tan Mingzhu liked. Under her family's influence, Mingzhu ended up in Beijing, and to Lu Shaoqi's dismay, she blamed it all on him. When you dislike someone, you start to think everything they do is wrong. And Tan Mingzhu truly disliked him. When Zuyu planned a grand confession, Shaoqi's roommate asked him if he thought it would succeed. Shaoqi naturally hoped it wouldn't, but his roommate told him, "Girls love romance. I bet it will work." Lu Shaoqi couldn't help but wonder, what if he orchestrated an even bigger confession? Would Mingzhu say yes? The answer, of course, was no. But he still couldn't sit still, so he went to watch. Seeing Tan Mingzhu fidget nervously with the corner of her coat and her beautiful eyes darting around, Lu Shaoqi relaxed. He knew she wouldn't accept. However, he could never have imagined the way Tan Mingzhu would turn Zuyu down. When his roommate accused him of keeping secrets and not being a good friend, Lu Shaoqi only smiled. He couldn't very well tell them that the engagement was real, but Mingzhu refused to acknowledge it. At last, she had come to terms with it. Finally, Tan Mingzhu had fallen in love with Lu Shaoqi. Tan Mingzhu never imagined that one day, she would experience the whirlwind of a flash marriage. Knowing Lu Shaoqi feared she might change her mind, she obediently followed him to the Civil Affairs Bureau, and they scheduled the wedding for 3 months later. Both families were overjoyed. Mingzhu's mother and Lu's mother even shed tears, saying they had waited for this day for so long, while their husbands exchanged knowing glances. To Lu Shaoqi, their trip to Tianjin and its Italian-style buildings held special significance. So, they decided to hold the wedding at an Italian farm in the Shuani district. Mingzhu couldn't help but laugh. Why not just have the wedding in Italy? Shaoqi answered seriously, "That won't do. It's too inconvenient. I want our friends, my friends, and our families to witness the wedding. We can visit Italy on our own later." Mingzhu was left speechless, but she was deeply touched and felt both heartache and guilt. After all, it was her own indecision that had delayed them for so many years. Luckily, happiness, though delayed, would never be absent. At the wedding, Zuyu, true to form, joked, "What do I do now? I want to take the bride home with me." Lu Shaoqi cracked his knuckles, and Zuyu quickly waved his hands, insisting it was just a joke. Back when Zuyu had been rejected, he hadn't been satisfied and had challenged Lu Shaoqi to a fight. Lu Shaoqi, harboring some frustration, had not held back and had beaten him soundly. After all that Taekwondo training hadn't been for nothing. Lu Shaoqi had already decided to tell Mingzhu about it that night, hoping to enjoy the feeling of being admired by his wife. "Why didn't you tell me earlier that you liked me?" Tan Mingzhu was still hung up on this and had asked Lu Shaoqi more than once. Every time, Lu Shaoqi would change the subject, not wanting to answer the painful question. But eventually, he couldn't avoid it anymore. Gritting his teeth, he said, "You tell me, if I had confessed, what would you have done?" Feeling guilty, Tan Mingzhu kissed the corner of his mouth and mischievously continued, "What if I had never looked back? What if I had married someone else? What would you have done?" Lu Shaoqi's mood dampened a little as he held her tightly and said, "I wanted to try, but nothing I did was right in front of you. No matter how much I cared for you, you never saw it. What could I have done?" Mingzhu's eyes turned red. "I would have looked back. I would have seen your goodness eventually. You don't have to do anything. I wouldn't have married anyone else. Truly, you've always been the one I love." Tan's mother had said it well. One was cold and reticent, and the other was rebellious and oblivious. In the end, they were a match made in heaven. Tan Mingzhu officially became the wife of Lu Shaoqi, president of the Lu Corporation, and occasionally used her status to flaunt her power at the company. The receptionist was still the same as before, and Mingzhu couldn't resist teasing her. "So, have many women come to see the president recently?" "Not many, but they're all clients." Of course, even if there were, she wouldn't tell her. While the boss was cool-headed and reasonable, one couldn't be sure how he'd react to questions from his wife. Mingzhu was quite satisfied with her. After all, the receptionist had played a big part in making her new status known throughout the company so quickly. Lu Shaoqi's secretary also said that ever since Mingzhu started coming to the company, women interested in the president were much less enthusiastic around him. So in the end, that little drama had not been in vain. The results were quite good. Lu Shaoqi, seeing how happy she was, let her do as she pleased. After all, his wife's happiness was what mattered most. In their second year of marriage, Tan Mingzhu gave birth to a son. "Should we arrange an engagement for our son too?" Lu Shaoqi immediately refused. "We'll wait until we have a daughter, and then arrange one for her." Mingzhu was furious. "Do you dislike our daughter that much? Are you in such a hurry to marry her off?" Shaoqi, feeling wronged, protested. "I'm just worried our son will end up like me, rejected by his fiancée. If anyone's going to be picky, it should be our daughter rejecting others. Don't you agree?"